Yeah, good morning. So today is another day. A brother who found a book. Look what book I found. The Religious Instructions of the Negroes in the United States. Charles Cocock Jones. Interesting book. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to read The Religious Instruction of the Negroes in the United States by Charles Cocock Jones. So what I'll do is I'll say the first let's see, looking through it here. I'll read the first 5 pages without giving my biased opinion. Interesting book. Let's begin. All right, the preface. The preparation of the following pages has been undertaken at the suggestion of friends, seconded by the convictions of my own mind, that a small volume on the religious instruction of the Negroes in the United States would not be an acceptable offering to the public, and especially the Christian public at the present time. Whatever I have before prepared or published on the subject has been freely used whenever it has suited my purpose. In the present composition, I had endeavored to confine myself to the religious instructions of the Negroes and have touched upon the subjects only when it has been necessary for the illustration support of the one before me. I commend the book to the candid consideration of those who read it. My design has been to speak the truth plainly and in love, and to do good. May the blessings of the Almighty God attend the effort. Charles Cocock Jones. 4th of July, 1842. 1842. That is the preface. Contents, so you can see. Now, part 1. Historical sketch of the religious instruction of the Negroes from their first introduction into the country in 1620 to the year 1842. Okay. The religious instruction of the Negroes in the United States. This is a real book. Part 1. Historical sketch of the religious instruction of the Negroes from their first introduction into the country in 1620 to the year 1842. Chapter 1. If you have the book, or if you can find it online, please read along. The ISBN number before we start the book is as follows: 9798623763761. Chapter 1. The first period from their introduction in 1620 to the first census in 1790, a period of 170 years. Such is the scarcity of materials and the difficulty of arriving at the scattered sources of information that I have called the following historical notice of the religious instruction of the Negroes in the United States a sketch. It deserves no better name, although perhaps it may embody the principal facts on the subject. For the sake of the perspicuity, the sketch is divided into periods of time. The first period, extending from the introduction of the Negroes into the country in 1620 to the first census in 1790, a period of 170 years. The second period from 1790 to 1820, a period of 30 years. And the third period from 1820 to 1842, a period of 22 years. 1. So you'll notice over time I make a habit of showing you the pages because this is a real book. But why wouldn't it be? Let's continue. Account of the introduction of Negroes into the colonies under the government of Great Britain. It was in the year 1501 that Isabella of Spain granted permission for the introduction of the Negro slaves into Hispaniola, but such only as had been born in Spain or in slavery among Christians. And in the following year, a few had been sent into the New World. In 1508, the Spaniards opened a direct trade in slaves and imported Negroes into Hispaniola from the Portuguese settlements on the coast of Guinea. Ferdinand V, by royal ordinance, enjoined a direct traffic in slaves between Guinea and Hispaniola in 1511, and Charles V in 1512 to 13. In 1517, Charles V granted a patent to one of his Flemish favorite containing an exclusive right of importing slaves, 4,000 annually, into Hispaniola, Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. This favorite sold his patent to some Guyanese merchants for 25,000 ducats, and they were the first who brought into regular from that commerce for the slaves between Africa and America, which has since been carried on oath such revolting circumstances and to such an amazing extent. 45 years after, in 1562 and 1563, the English entered the trade under Sir John Hawkins and carried Negroes from Africa to Hispaniola in 1567, Queen Elizabeth protected and shared the traffic. Thus, the mother country was engaged in the traffic 45 years before the first permanent settlement was made in her American colonies, which was Jamestown, Virginia, 1607. The Dutch, in common with other maritime nations of Europe, engaged in trade and a man of war of the nation from the coast of Guyana. And in August 1620, 4 months before the Plymouth colony arrived in America, landed 20 Negroes for sale in the colony of Virginia on James River, which determines the epoch of their introduction into the colonies. From this period, they were gradually and at different times introduced into all the colonies from Massachusetts to Georgia, and for the most part, contrary to the wishes of the colonists. The first cargo of Negro slaves was brought into Boston in 1645, and though their introductions was denounced and the Negroes ordered to be returned at public charge, yet it was afterwards permitted and people engaged in the trade. And Maryland acts were passed encouraging the importation of Negroes in 1671. And in the same year, they were first introduced into South Carolina. They were legally admitted into Georgia in 1747. The precise year of their admission into the remaining 8 of the old 13 colonies is not accurately known. Okay, so after reading, and we all listened and or read together, I have a few passages I would like to go back over. So it says here, it was in the year 1501, Isabella of Spain granted permission for the introduction of Negro slaves into Hispaniola. Did you know that? What does Negroes have to do with Hispaniola? Help me out. I'm learning here. Next passage reads, in 1508, the Spaniards. Who were the Spaniards? I know the language is Spanish, and if it's Hispaniola, is that Spain? Spaniards? In 1508, Spaniards opened a direct trade in slaves and imported Negroes into Hispaniola from the Portuguese settlements on the coast of Guyana. Who are the Spaniards? So Spain is not Mexico. Let's continue. I'm just a brother who picked up a book. I'm just reading along and learning like some of you are. Next passage was pretty interesting that we went over. In 1517, Charles V granted a patent to one of his Flemish favorites, containing an exclusive right of importing slaves. I'm going to back up again. In 1517, Charles V granted a patent to one of his Flemish favorites containing an exclusive right of importing slaves. A patent? 4,000 annually. It's yearly. Annually. It's yearly. Look it up. Don't believe what I say. You know, I could tell you anything. I'm just reading a book. A patent on importing slaves, 4,000 a year, into Hispaniola, Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. Interesting. This favorite sold his patent to some Guyanese. It's Genoese merchants for 25,000 ducats. He sold his patent to import slaves to someone else, importing slaves into Hispaniola, Cuba, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. Next passage. 45 years after, in 1562 and 63, the English entered the trade under Sir John Hawkins and carried Negroes from Africa to Hispaniola. And in 1567, this is the part, 1567. Did you all know this? In 1567, Queen Elizabeth protected and shared the traffic of slaves. Queen Elizabeth. In the United States, we're familiar with Queen Elizabeth in some more than others. But it's interesting that the American educational system didn't know she shared in the importing of traffic and protected it of importing Negroes. I just found that interesting in these last passages. Last one. The first cargo of Negro slaves was brought into Boston in 1645, and though their introduction was denounced and the Negroes ordered to be returned at public charge, yet it was afterwards permitted. And people engaged in the trade. So, that is 2 pages of a brother reading a book. Please follow me next time on page 2. As we go into the estimated Negro population of the colonies at the Declaration of Independence and census in 1790. The estimated Negro population of the colonies at the Declaration of Independence and the census of 1790. I think this is going to be interesting. Thank you for following along. This is a brother just reading a book. Peace.